Hi kids, welcome back to another pizza party. I'm Mrs. Pizza. This is Winnie. Hi. And back there somewhere, why do you look like you're plotting vengeance? That's Cheese. And we are here today for two reasons. We're actually going to combine two kind of videos into one because we've got a bunch of books coming out here very, very soon that I'm very excited about and I want to talk about, but they are immediately going on my TBR. That being said, I'm the moodiest mood reader that ever did mood read. What that means is I can't set TBRs other than seasonal TBRs because I can't put that much pressure on myself. So we are going to make a seasonal TBR. The season is spring, so that is the season we are doing. So we are going to add these new releases to our TBR and add a couple more books on there. And hopefully this gives us a little bit of direction when it comes to picking out books. Just to make it easy, we are going to start with the books that are going to be releasing here in April and the ones that are going immediately on my TBR. What? Well, I just got some very bad news. One of them, the release date has definitely moved. Well, that hurts my feelings. Okay, so that one's going off the list. We're not even going to talk about it. We're not even going to look at it. It's fine. It's not like I wanted to read it soon or anything. The first book we are going to talk about is going to be The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. This is the most recent release from this author, and I believe this is a historic novel. I do not know if this is going to be fantasy, but this author has quite a lot of fantasy in their backlist. So I'd be surprised if a little bit of fantasy didn't make it into this because I think this is about vampires. If you don't know who Leigh Bardugo is, hi. Welcome to the world. That author is responsible not only for, Shadow and Bone that had its own Netflix series, but also, let's see if I can hold these with one hand. Oh, I can. Ninth House and Hellbent, which is their dark academia fantasy series that is currently ongoing and that I am a fan of. Shadow and Bone is a little bit more YA. Ninth House is a little bit more adult. And I'm assuming that The Familiar is going to be adult as well. This says it is a highly anticipated historical fantasy. All right, it's fantasy. I feel better. Historical fantasy set during the Spanish Golden Age, where we have a main character who uses scraps of magic to get through her days of endless toil as a scullion? Whatever a scullion is, it does not sound good. It sounds like this main character's magic gets found out and it thrusts them into a world they were not necessarily equipped for. I may or may not have ordered a special edition of this because I saw it and I thought it looked pretty. But I'm very excited. That one comes out on April 9th, so go ahead. Get it ready. Go ahead and put it on your library list if you need to. The next book that is actually, there's like a dog hair on my lip, but that's just the story of my life. That's what happens when you kiss your dogs on their sweet little fluffy heads. You get dog fur in your lip gloss. Okay. The next book we're going to talk about is The Book That Broke the World, and this is by Mark Lawrence. This is the second book in the library trilogy by this author. The Book That Wouldn't Burn, I believe. I think that's what it's called. Now my brain is like, do you know anything, honestly? The Book That Wouldn't Burn is the first book in this series and made it onto my best books of 2023. I really, really enjoyed it. And so coming up, the second book, the middle book in this trilogy, the follow-up to that book, is coming out on April 11th. This is the story of... I'm sorry, I'm in the middle of something, but I promise to pet you later. This story so far is following two main characters and 2 points of view, one being a young woman who grows up in the dust, is what it's called. In this fantasy world, there seems to be one major city where all civilization is, and then everything outside of this city is just kind of dust. It's very arid, not much grows there, and the people that live out in the dust struggle. This young woman is born in the dust, and then one day her very small village is attacked by a hostile force, and she forcibly has to make the trek from where she was in the dust to the one large city in the world. And through this journey, she proves over and over again that she's just more than she should be. Not that she should be anything, but she's just so empathetic and is able to see the wrongs of this world, not only because she's a child and children are very observant, but because she's a good person. Not too many people in this world seem to have any empathy. The other point of view is a young man who was grown up inside of the library. Now, the library exists in this one large city in the world and is infinite. It has just vast rooms and magical security systems and is full of all of the possible knowledge that you could ever find, for better or for worse. The face she makes when she gets like a good scratch going is kind of my favorite. Now, this young man has grown up in the library, secluded in this area of the library with his siblings, and has lived a very interesting kind of upbringing because of it. There are twists and turns and reveals in this book, and it's such a good time. I really, really enjoyed it, and I cannot wait to pick up the next book and see what happens to our characters, because one of the plot twists I was spoiled for, and I was really upset because it would have been such a revelation, but I still had a really good time with all of the ones that I didn't see coming, or that I did see coming, and I was like, yes, you feel very vindicated. I was correct. All right, those are the 2 books that are coming out in April that I am adding to my TBR. Now we are going to talk about some books that I'm going to be adding to my TBR that are not necessarily brand new, but I want to get to them here soon. And there is no rhyme or reason. I'm not picking these because springtime. I'm literally picking these because these are the books I want to get to. And I'm a moody mood reader. We got to have a little bit of everything. The first book that I am hopefully going to be picking up soon is going to be That Time I Got Drunk and Yeeted a Love Potion at a Werewolf. This is the second book in the Mead Mishap series by Kimberly Lemming. These books were originally on Kindle Unlimited and now have been picked up by a publisher and are being traditionally published. I just finished rereading the first book in the series, which is That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon. These books are really funny and fun. They're super lighthearted. They have spicy times. This one is the story of Cinnamon, or Sin, and she is a cinnamon farmer, a spice farmer. And one day when she is walking home from a festival in town, she happens upon someone in trouble, but when she goes to save them, she accidentally saves a demon. And then that catapults her into an adventure that she does not want anything to do with, but here we go. We're going on an adventure to save the world. This is really funny. This is really easy to get through. This is one of those books where I just feel like it's such a good palate cleanser in between really kind of like dense books or sad books, because it is just so, you'll giggle and then sexy things happen, you know? But I'm rereading my way through the series. And so next up is That Time I Got Drunk and Yeeted a Love Potion at a Werewolf. And this one is following Cinnamon's best friend, Bree, who, surprise, surprise, makes cheese for a living. And she accidentally yeets a love potion at a werewolf. She is trying to avoid taking the love potion that someone tried to slip to her, and she chucks it at the head of the person who tried to dose her. And in doing so, that person ducks at the last second, and she hits this werewolf just square in his face. And then we deal with the consequences of hitting someone square in the face with a love potion. This, again, is just funny. These are just funny, and they're spicy, and I need to read them to be happy. If you like being happy, you'll read these books. Do you like being happy? Read the books. The next book that is on my TBR is also a sequel to a book that I really, really enjoyed from last year, made it onto my best of 2023, and that is Sunbringer. This is the second book in this series by Hannah Kaner. Our first book is Godkiller. This is the story of Kissian, and she is our titular Godkiller, and she, similar to a witcher, travels from small town to small settlement to village, eradicating gods, because in this world, it's incredibly easy to make a god. All it takes is intention and prayer and tributes, and a god can pop up. There are gods for things as small as broken sandals to things as big as the ocean and war. This world is just riddled with gods. But gods, after a war that happened, have been now made illegal. And so Kissian goes town to town eradicating these gods that pop up. We also have 3 other points of view in this story. We have Elo, and he is the former right hand to the prince, now king, in charge, but he has left the king's service and now works as a baker. We have Inara, who is the sheltered daughter of a noblewoman. And we have Skady, who is the god of little white lies. And he and Inara have somehow become tethered to each other. In this book, which is very, very short, all of these characters meet up for reasons, go on an adventure for reasons, and we have that found family element in this as well. This book is absolutely gorgeous and was such a fun time that, of course, I had to get the second one, which is equally as gorgeous. This book is absolutely beautiful. And our first book kind of ends on a little bit of a cliffhanger. We're wondering where our characters are going to end up on this journey. now I get to pick this up. Honestly, this is spring colors, right? So this is basically me picking it because it's beautiful. The next book that is actually on my TBR, and this is so, for me, I wish I could be like, spring means flowers and fae, but for me, spring means just whatever the hell I'm in the mood for. And so we're going to add a horror book to this mix. And the book that I have added, it should be coming through from the library for me soon, is the Reformatory, and that is by Tananarive Due, which I have not read anything from this author before, but I have heard amazing things. This was actually published in October of 2023, I believe, so somewhat of a new release. And this is a novel that's set in Jim Crow, Florida, that follows Robert Stevens Jr. as he's sent to a segregated reform school that is a chamber of terrors where he sees the horrors of racism and injustice for the living and the dead. It sounds like our character Robbie, or Robert, also known as Robbie, is 12 years old and he's sentenced to 6 months in this reformatory because he had something to do with him defending his sister. Some affluent member of town's son was doing something to the sister. The 12-year-old comes to the defense of his sister, and during Jim Crow in the South, of course, was seen as the guilty party and sent off to this reform school. I know his sister in this story plays a big part as well, trying to get him out of this reform school, but it sounds like there is going to be ghosts and creepy crawly things, and some of the scariest things are probably going to be the live people that we're dealing with in this story. I've heard really, really good things about this author. I've heard really good things about this book. All right, let's read it. The next book that I'm going to pick up after that, where is she at? I thought I pulled it. Am I a crazy person? I think the moral of this is that there's just too many places in this house that contain books. All right, the next book on my list is going to be The Starling House, and this is by Alix E. Harrow. This book is incredibly shiny, so I'm not going to hold it up for too long. I am going to show you. The cover on this, the dust jacket, is actually clear, which is what makes it so shiny. But the book itself is absolutely gorgeous. This is the Illumicrate edition of this book. This, I think, is more of a gothic type tale, and this is the story of a small town. I would hold it up, but it is literally, that's just blinding. Maybe if I hold it, there we go. I'm going to hold it back here. This is the story of Starling House, which I believe is a mansion in a very small town that has a very sinister past. And our main character, Opal, ends up getting a job at this kind of house with a history in her small town and uncovering its sinister secrets. This also, I think, might have some sort of a love story going on with the person that is the current heir to the Starling House. I will say I just read a book by this author, a very short story actually, and I really enjoyed it. And so I knew I had this book on my shelf. I now want to pick it up sooner. So, Starling House, it's on the TBR. The next book that is on my TBR is honestly, holy hair, what's happening, is probably the only one that I actually feel like fits with the spring theme, and that is Wildwood Dancing, and this is by Juliet Marillier, I think is how you would say it. This, I believe, is a YA story by this author, but it looks like spring. This is I believe, a retelling of the Seven Sisters. It sounds like it is the story of sisters that can travel to another realm. There is dark magic, 3 magical gifts, 2 forbidden lovers, and 1 enchanted frog. It sounds very fairy tale fantasy, which is something I've been craving a lot of recently. And this author, when I did kind of a dive into authors that feel fairy tale but make it adult, this author kept coming up. Found this one for pretty cheap, and so I picked it up. It looks beautiful. It feels like spring. And the last book that is on my TBR that has not shown up yet, but will be getting here soon, is The BlackTongue Thief. And this is by Christopher Buehlman, I believe is how you say it, but I might be wrong. And I probably am. I actually found this for dirt cheap on Pango, and it should be showing up at my house sometime soon. But I actually wanted to read this before the second book comes out this year in this series. And so I needed to get the first one done. This author, I think, is known for their more horror dark novels. novels, and this is a fantasy that definitely has some of those elements, but also I've heard it's got some incredibly funny parts. It is the story of our main character who he owes the Takers Guild a small fortune for his education as a thief, which includes, but is not limited to, lockpicking, knife fighting, wall scaling, fall breaking, lie weaving, trap making, and plus a few small magics. His debt has driven him to lie in wait in the Old Forest Road, planning to rob the next traveler that crosses his path. But today he has picked the wrong mark. It sounds like he tries to rob a woman who is a knight who has survived some horrible wars, and she is the handmaiden of the goddess of death. She is searching for her queen, and these two, I think, end up becoming reluctant comrades. This sounds like, looking at the Goodreads reviews, it looks like you either loved it or you didn't, but a lot of the people that loved it are people that love other books in common with me, and so I'm interested to see, because the next book will be coming out this summer, so I need to get to that one before the second book comes out. But why not start another series? I'm already in the middle of 1,000. But that, kids, is where we are going to... Hello? Did you scare yourself? But that, kids, is where we are going to end this pizza party. I hope you found some books to add to your TBR. I hope you're excited to hear about these books when I finish reading them. I hope you're reading some of them too, and we can chit chat about it. But if you had fun hanging out with me and the dogs, please subscribe. I hope you're reading good books out there, wherever you are, and I'll see you next time.